Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Today, I wanted to talk about relationship burnout and the silent treatment. And there's usually different reasons that a couple reaches the point where they're not talking anymore. But usually, or what I've seen through my practice and some of my own lived experience is that um, if you're in a long-term relationship, it can get to the point where you're barely talking to each other. And the two main reasons that I see happening a lot is one, um, you've stopped having things to talk about with each other. You've grown so far apart that you're no longer sharing any kind of communication just because you're no longer feeling any kind of connection. And we've all seen those couples sitting in restaurants or whatever where they're not even talking to each other, and maybe they're on their phones, but I'm thinking more of like an older generation thing. So before phones were, the constant in our hands, I'm sure like being, when you were younger, you could remember seeing those couples that would just sort of sit there and silently go through a meal without barely talking. And I find that fascinating. But the second reason that couples will stop talking is because there's a lot of resentment and anger that's built up. And so maybe you've gotten to the point where you've been fighting a lot, and then it just gets easier to just not talk or not express yourself because it always seems to be it always seems to devolve into some sort of argument or fight. And so both of those things are not necessarily um, or a natural thing. Like I think if you've gotten to that place in your relationship, either one, communication is going to be key. And so don't mind me, I'm not communicating very well today. I think I'm still half asleep. But so communication is going to be the key to rebuilding any kind of relationship. But each separate thing is going to take different approaches. I think to rebuild connection when there's just a lost connection, you've just grown apart, it's going to be about sort of finding your way back towards each other, maybe finding some common interests, rediscovering each other, and maybe that starts with rediscovering yourself. So, I think a lot of times what happens is couples, they've been together a long time and maybe they were busy with their careers or raising children or any number of things that take up a lot of our energy and time. It can happen that couples will stop sort of communicating in a intimate and couple way, and just sort of um, constantly stay in this other state of talking about life, everyday life stuff, mundane, or even some challenging stuff, but not really connecting on that more sensual and intimate level of sharing. So you can drift apart in those cases. And sometimes when there's a lot of stuff going on within a family um, due to physical or mental illnesses, it can really erode that sense of togetherness. It can also bring them together even more. So there's sides to that it can either make it tighter or it can drive a wedge between you. And if you're finding yourself in that situation and you want to connect with your spouse, then start by having that conversation. Something like, I feel like we've grown apart and I'm missing that connection that we had, and I would like to not necessarily recapture that connection because you were different people then. So, that excitement, the newness of being, young love or new in a relationship, it doesn't stick around. But there's something about that person that attracted you in the first place. And if you're still feeling attracted to them on a deep level, as far as, you have respect for them, you value them, then in that case, it could be a matter of communicating that you want to reconnect, asking if they like that as well, and then working together toward actually reconnecting. So not just talking about it like, oh, I miss you, oh, I miss you too, and yeah, and just sort of lamenting, the fact that you've grown apart. It takes actual steps to reconnect in a lot of cases. And then if you're in the circumstance where your relationship is evolved to a point where you're not speaking because there's so much anger sort of bubbling under the surface for both of you, that not speaking is sort of the lesser of two evils, then, then the question becomes not just how do you communicate, but is it worth staying in that relationship and learning communication skills and rebuilding trust if trust has been broken, and is there something to work with? Is there a foundational essence to your relationship that's worth rebuilding? Those are, those questions only you can answer, and you, partner, can answer. Really have to get to that kind of thinking and introspection when you're right in the thick of things. And anger is still just so, right there at the surface, and, sort of pulling up at times. That's going to be really hard to kind of come back from without some sort of help in a lot of cases, some therapy, but also a lot of work for each individual to sort of feel about what they want, what's important to them, those questions of, am I still attracted to this person? Am I still in a relationship with this person? And if I am and still do, what would that look like? What would I need in the relationship in order to not get back in this place? And then hopefully the other person is doing this. And if there's an opportunity for you to come together in therapy, then those are like the questions. Do we want this relationship together? Do we want to continue building a future together? If so, what does that look like? And not just enough to say, yes, we be in a relationship together, and yes, we still, together. It's to that detail. Well, exactly what do you mean? And what would we have to take maybe certainly years to achieve that? What do we need to do in order to rebuild the relationship and us to have a future that therapy for you? Amazing. So the great thing about it is there's ways to help. You don't stay stuck in the situation of happiness and sadness and connection. To be reconnect. And the therapy might, like a couple's therapy, might being you together, you no longer want to work together, but in a setting could allow for much compassion and acceptance towards so that especially in the case of you have to continue to parent with you for the rest of life, because even as I've seen other friends really with how to manage different family dynamics due to relations and whatnot going to that whole situation. So, you know, if you're in a relationship, not sure worth seeing, we can help get some on that. If you're in a relationship where you're thinking you'd like to see together, but you're not sure actually happen in a positive, we can help. And then you've got the door. Maybe they stay there for reasons. Understand that to reason people stay there. Be time to consider move forward. Still being semblance of a relation. If you're parenting, how to healthfully and hopefully, so that if you're getting your from the that you can with a complete knowing. So to get that at a certain point in the relationship, there's anger that comes up that makes it for to walk away having feeling anger, bitterness to partner and understand how it's a lot of reasons to have things and just for the partner, children, or who are affected or relationship makes sense dissolve the on health that in the other bit and actually more just a moment of long image. So many reasons to if they're in a relationship, if you're in a burn, and if you're not sure where to if you're then speak with that. You and recognize that you're there's law coupling last years have accepted on actions very few and so this one so there's always going to be evil lives and that's the of living in the world having that to take you know it's just how relationship you would shout there shout the message free to and chat not the way you are on who and so I'll have to and there so